This monster approached the little girl's face. It opened its mouth. It extended a long, thin tongue. The tip of the tongue was covered in forks, just like a cannibal flower. This is the Russian horror series Kitchen Block. We will discuss in this episode. The little boy, Valerka, is going to attend a summer camp. The camp he chose is somewhat special. A pioneer camp located on the banks of the Volga River. During the Civil War, intense battles took place in this area. Many Red Army soldiers sacrificed their lives here. The campsite is filled with terrifying legends. Valerka's older brother worked here as a counselor, but unfortunately, he passed away due to some accident. Soon, a cruise ship docked, and everyone, under the command of the leader, headed to the dormitory. Valerka saw a disfigured old woman, and her malicious gaze frightened him. The next moment, the chief advisor, Helen, enthusiastically shouted, bringing Valerka's attention back. The little boys quickly went to the dormitory and occupied their places. At night, a few people sat together telling ghost stories, while Valerka huddled under the bed sheet. This was the mosquito prevention method taught by his brother, and indeed, mosquitoes were everywhere at night. The next day, everyone gathered wearing their red scarves. Together, they listened to Helen's opening ceremony, and she also invited a veteran to give a speech. They educated the children about the harsh years of war. Valerka is the most knowledgeable child here. He gained the appreciation of the veteran. They together completed the flag-raising ceremony. But during the football match, Valerka couldn't get involved. There was a conflict within the team, as the players didn't accept the young team leader and teamed up to exclude him. In the evening, the young team leader stayed alone on the field, practicing and feeling sad about the events of the day. When it was time to sleep, he had returned to the dormitory. Everyone went together and found the young team leader in the woods. The counselor finally felt relieved and asked everyone to go back and rest. Valerka couldn't sleep and suddenly saw a shadow passing by outside the bed sheet. He lifted a corner and discovered the young team leader crouched by his teammate's bed, sucking blood with a long, thin tongue extended from his mouth. By morning, the young team leader returned to normal. After coming back from the woods, he started wearing a red scarf every day. The people who were bitten only felt itchy on their arms, as if they had been bitten by mosquitoes. Valerka felt uneasy and wanted to call his parents, but he was stopped by Helen. He became increasingly uneasy when suddenly he heard his brother's voice beside him. His brother said, "Write down your problems in a notebook, and after checking each item one by one, the remaining one is the answer." Valerka followed the advice. He went to the medical room first to check his health and confirmed that his hallucinations weren't due to physical weakness. During the football match, Valerka observed carefully and noticed that the people who had been bitten the previous night were obediently following the young team leader's instructions and diligently participating in the running training. Valerka asked the counselor Igor, if vampires exist in the world, what are they afraid of? The counselor dismissed it as a child's vivid imagination and said vampires are afraid of garlic and sunlight, just like how it's portrayed in movies. Valerka went to the kitchen and got a few cloves of garlic. During the night, he placed the garlic cloves under his classmate's pillow. Soon, the young team leader sat up and leaned over Valerka's bedsheet mosquito net, trying to entice him to invite him inside. However, Valerka was hiding under the bed at that moment, holding the remaining garlic cloves in his hand. Luckily, the young team leader didn't notice him and instead crawled onto someone else to suck their blood, using his tongue like a mosquito's proboscis to pierce the student's skin. It seems that garlic didn't work. The next day, Valerka went to discuss with Helen. He just wanted to go home as soon as possible, but Helen remained firm in her attitude and completely ignored his requests. Valerka had to find another solution. He wanted to have a comprehensive medical examination for all the members. If the young team leader was indeed a vampire, there would certainly be differences from regular people. The question was how to trigger a comprehensive medical examination for everyone. Valerka went to the library to research and finally found a solution. He undressed and walked into a patch of nettles, letting the stinging leaves scratch his skin, and he swallowed the graphite powder from a pencil. In the evening, Valerka started to have a fever, and his back was covered in a rash. It looks like a severe skin disease. He deliberately told the doctor that there are other people in the summer camp with the same symptoms, but they are afraid of being quarantined and unwilling to seek medical attention. As soon as it was daylight, the doctor organized a comprehensive medical examination for everyone. Valerka approached the young team leader, and the nurse in charge of the examination quickly noticed something wrong. She couldn't measure the young team leader's blood pressure and pulse, so she hurriedly picked up a stethoscope to examine him. The young team leader tried to break free, but was held down by an assistant, and the stethoscope was placed on his chest. The young team leader's silent heart suddenly filled with blood and began to beat slowly. This vampire could actually control his heartbeat. Valerka couldn't think of any other methods. He sneaked to the communication room at night to make a phone call, and he encountered the senior students, who took away a female student from the neighboring class. Valerka hung up the phone and rushed to save the girl, shielding her with his body. At that moment, senior student Kevin came out. It was late at night, and he was not only wearing a red scarf, but also had a Lenin badge. Valerka pushed Kevin away, allowing the girl behind him to escape quickly. Kevin pinned Valerka to the ground and extended a long proboscis. In this critical moment, surprisingly, it was the young team leader who arrived, followed by classmates who had been sucked of blood. The young team leader regarded Valerka as his possession and would not allow other vampires to covet him. From what we've seen so far, we can infer that anyone wearing a red scarf and a Lenin badge is highly likely to be a vampire. Kevin spared Valerka temporarily when he saw that he had a protector, but he threatened to get a female student who didn't have any protection. At that moment, the escaping girl, Lena, came with a female counselor and drove away the troublesome senior student. Valerka returned to the dormitory, and the young team leader approached him, trying to persuade him that everyone still lived well after sucking blood. So why did he choose to be a rebellious outlier? He suggested Valerka let him take a sip. Valerka replied that he didn't want to be controlled, and that losing oneself was far more terrifying than death. Surprisingly, the young team leader didn't get angry. Instead, he extended his hand as a gesture of goodwill. In the evening, the young team leader sneaked over again. He tried to feed on blood, but Valerka managed to break free and run out of the dormitory. He then secretly went to the medical room to look through the medical examination records. Unfortunately, the nurse, in order to save time, casually wrote down a set of blood pressure data. After seeing that, the young team leader's heartbeat was normal. While feeling disappointed, Valerka noticed traces of the previous page on the paper. He traced over it with a pencil, and it revealed that a certain student had died 4 days ago. At that moment, the doctor who had been sleeping woke up. Valerka grabbed a nearby utility knife for self-defense and asked the doctor why he had concealed the student's death. Seeing the doctor about to explode, Valerka immediately fled from the medical room. Valerka hid in the woods and unexpectedly saw two people having a date on a bench. The boy wearing a red scarf was clearly sucking the girl's blood. What was even more bizarre was that the doctor was observing from the shadows. It turns out he already knew about the abnormalities in the camp. Valerka doesn't have anyone he can't trust. He is searching for ways to deal with vampires. He made a makeshift cross necklace for himself. He approached the team leader for a test, and the latter indeed felt uncomfortable. Valerka immediately gave the necklace to Lena, but she rejected it because she found it ugly. Valerka found some tin soldier toys, mounted them, poured the molten metal into a wooden mold he had carved, and finally made a beautiful cross. He gave the necklace to Lena, and she accepted it. At night, several students got food poisoned and showed symptoms of high fever. Valerka found it strange and followed the feverish student. He climbed to the window of the medical room to peek inside and saw the student struggling in a chair. The doctor untied a belt and tied the patient's legs. Leaning over their shoulder, the female student finally calmed down, but her pupils turned into a strange white color. The doctor placed a lens near her nose, and there was no white mist appearing, indicating that the female student had stopped breathing. After the doctor left, Valerka crawled in. Unexpectedly, the female student suddenly got up, and just when he was in a panic, the doctor came back. Valerka hid behind the door, and the female student broke free from her restraints and walked past the doctor. Leaving the room, Valerka wrote down his question in the notebook. Could it be that vampires don't die because movies say only fire can kill them? So Valerka tied a piece of cloth to a stick and used the method his brother taught him. He took a bowl of resin and poured it onto the cloth. He held a homemade torch and matches as he went to sleep, constantly vigilant against potential attacks. Soon, a dark figure approached Valerka's bed. He ignited the torch to drive away the students, but accidentally set the bedsheet on fire. The fire quickly spread. Igor came with a fire extinguisher to put out the fire. Fortunately, everything turned out fine, and no students were injured. Helen was angry and wanted to find the arsonist. The team leader, for some unknown reason, did not expose Valerka. He even claimed to have heard passersby outside by halfway through his sleep, suggesting that it was their cigarette. but that ignited the curtains. Helen rummaged through Valerka's bed and took away the notebook he had hidden inside. On it was written about fire, garlic, vampires, and such. The team leader instructed a comrade to take the matches from Valerka's pocket and casually throw them out the window. The next moment, Helen was about to check everyone's pockets. She didn't find any suspicious items. After Helen left, Valerka asked the team leader why he helped. The team leader replied, "You are interesting, and I don't want you to leave the camp." The next day was the pirate party at the summer camp. The children were playing and frolicking like crazy. The vampires with red scarves dared not approach the water source. Valerka realized that they were afraid of the water here. It wasn't just the male protagonist who noticed this. Several girls saw a female student dressed neatly, and they joined forces to carry her to the riverside. The female student kept screaming and struggling. The next moment, she was thrown into the water. She let out a scream as soon as she touched the water. She grabbed onto the railing and jumped back to the shore. A burn wound from the water was revealed on her ankle. Several girls were frightened by this scene because it was broad daylight. The female vampire didn't make any sudden movements. Valerka observed everything. At that moment, a veteran fishing by the shore greeted him. His arm was tattooed with a sickle and hammer. Valerka followed the feverish girl. He carefully examined her leg injury, but the next moment, she was taken away by her vampire companion. Valerka wanted to know what was special about the water here. He asked the staff by the shore. The person said that upstream, there was a church. All the baptisms there took place by the river. Therefore, the priest blessed the water of the river. Perhaps the river contained holy water. As evening approached, Valerka filled several bottles. He hid the holy water under a tree. He took one bottle and sneaked into the infirmary. He mixed it into the doctor's alcohol bottle. He wanted to test whether the doctor was a vampire, but the doctor didn't show up for a long time. Valerka looked around. He discovered the doctor hanging from the ceiling. He ran back to the infirmary and grabbed a surgical knife. He cut the rope and rescued the doctor. Valerka didn't understand why the doctor wanted to end his life. He handed the doctor a glass of alcohol. The person immediately vomited after drinking it. It wasn't because they were afraid of holy water. It was because the doctor tasted water mixed in it. Valerka felt relieved. At least the person wasn't a vampire. The matter had come to this point. The doctor confessed. He knew that the camp was not normal. He was being driven insane by this place. That's why he wanted to end his life. The doctor warned Valerka should leave the camp quickly. Otherwise, he would meet the same fate as others. The next day, Valerka mixed the holy water with perfume. Then he gave it to Lena as a gift. But these methods could only protect the two of them, and the holy water Valerka had hidden. It was all dug out and poured away by the vampires. The river was outside the camp fence. He couldn't climb over it. Lena said that the perfume smelled bad. She didn't continue using it. She hasn't been wearing the cross recently. Valerka likes Lena. He wants to make a deal with Kevin. The other party agrees to spare Lena, but Valerka has to give him a handgun. The group arrives at an abandoned church. It is said that some fugitives conduct trades inside. As long as they provide some food supplies, they can't exchange it for a gun. Kevin is afraid to enter the church, so he lets his subordinates follow Valerka. They place the kin meat on the ground. As a result, it disturbs a group of bats. The group quickly runs out of the church. Valerka says that the handgun will be left in the same spot once the fugitives take the kin meat tomorrow, but he's unsure if this method will work. Therefore, Valerka takes a risk and sneaks into the veteran's house. He steals the veteran's handgun. Unexpectedly, he is caught by the veteran. Valerka's bad behavior attracts attention. Helen immediately holds a meeting to criticize him. Lena also reports Valerka. She says that he wants to climb over the wall to the river. Finally, Helen assigns the squad leader to monitor Valerka. If there is any more misconduct, Valerka will face punishment. He was deeply hurt by Lena's betrayal. Counselor Jenny is very kind. She takes Valerka to the staff dormitory and lets him stay temporarily. In the middle of the night, Jenny is awakened by mosquitoes. She goes for a night swim by the river. As Jenny gets out of the water, a shadow approaches silently. The next day is Parents' Day. Parents come to the camp to visit their children. Valerka excitedly rushes into his parents' arms. Everyone gathers to watch the cultural performance. However, Jenny, after being attacked last night, has also become a member of the vampires. She criticizes the girls for preparing performances that are too revealing. She plans to change the program during the bonfire party. With Lena as the lead singer, Valerka sees Jenny wearing a red scarf and badge, and he realizes that she has already transformed. He goes to find Jenny's lover, Igor. Valerka warns him not to have too much contact with Ginny, but Igor doesn't believe in the vampire stuff. Valerka turns around to find his parents. He hopes to leave the summer camp with them. Unexpectedly, his father calls him aside. He says he plans to take his mother on a trip to relax because she hasn't recovered from the shadow of losing her eldest son. Valerka doesn't want to cause trouble for his parents, but he also doesn't want to stay in the camp. He hides in the boat that transports parents. Unexpectedly, Helen notices him. The woman signals her companions, and they carry Valerka into the house and lock him inside. After the parents leave, Helen takes him to the infirmary and asks the doctor to administer a sedative to Valerka. Igor looks at the unconscious boy and feels that this approach is very unfair. He goes to talk to Ginny. Unexpectedly, Ginny reviews her strange tongue. Meanwhile, the other squad leader is planning to drink Valerka's blood. Just as he is about to succeed, Igor suddenly rushes over. He finally believes that there are vampires in the camp and wants Valerka's help. Valerka finally has an ally, and he shares all the information he has. These vampires can only feed after sunset. Those who have been sucked by them will become their servants, but these servants don't turn into vampires. They become obedient blood bags. Vampires don't just suck blood with their wool. If you resist their temptation, they can suck your blood. After hearing all the information, Igor takes Valerka to the water tower. By channeling the river water into the camp, they can eliminate the vampires in one fell swoop. As the sky darkens, the two of them start to act. They use a water pump to draw river water into the camp storage equipment. Everything is ready. The next day, the students wake up and get ready. The vampires wearing red scarves scream in pain. When they touch the river water, their faces look like they have been burned by sulfuric acid. Ginny prevents everyone from approaching the faucet. Only 3 vampires are lightly burned. After the doctor examines the water source and confirms that there are no corrosive substances, he suspects that Igor and Valerka are behind it. He finds the two of them to have a conversation. The doctor says that he came to the camp 3 years ago. He found a body by the river covered in bruises, but soon after, the girl resurrects right on the spot. Following that, more and more similar incidents occur. These people are clearly dead, but they can regain vitality in an instant. However, those who become vampires can only survive for a maximum of 1 year. They will die from various accidents and never wake up again. Valerka recalls his brother's tragic accidental death and finally understands his brother became a vampire before he died. Perhaps his brother taught Valerka to make mosquito nets to protect him from vampire bites. Valerka wants to figure out who turned these vampires. Only by destroying the source can the nightmare be put to an end. He and Igor start searching for the mastermind behind it all. They plan to start investigating the camp director, since he's the leader of the summer camp and likely knows a lot of inside information. Moreover, the director always has a piece of gauze on his neck. Igor confirmed with the doctor that the director never came to the infirmary for bandaging, making his wound highly suspicious. Igor follows the director and discovers him entering a house with a woman. Igor is afraid that the director intends to drink someone's blood, so he rushes in to save the person. He tears open the director's gauze. To his surprise, there are only kiss marks underneath. Igor remains calm. He asks the director if he knows about the vampires in the camp. The director's attitude suddenly changes. He says, "I'll show you something." After saying that, he leads Igor into the woods. The director takes the opportunity to knock Igor unconscious and tie him to a tree. He can't let Igor make things worse. It would ruin the camp's reputation. The vampires seem to be summoned. They rush towards the woods. The next day, Igor puts on a red scarf. The director assumes he has been turned into a vampire. He turns around and leaves with relief. Little does he know, Valerka saved Igor last night. He wasn't captured by the vampires. Yet after what happened last night, the two of them realize that the director is simply trying to prevent the summer camp from closing down. He deliberately turns a blind eye to everything that's happening. He is not of the same kind as the vampires, and definitely not the source. Valerka and Igor go to the library to search for information. They discover that the first incident at the camp was the disappearance of a counselor 8 years ago. The female counselor disappeared when she was under 20 years old. Igor uses his charm to get close to Helen. He asks her about the disappearance of Orla back then. Helen says Orla was abandoned by a man, and that's why she committed suicide. Orla had an unforgettable love affair before her disappearance. Igor and Valerka search through Orla's borrowing records. They discover that Orla read many love stories about sailors. Among them, there is also a novel about vampires. Inside the book, there is a note. It contains the abbreviation of a person's name. The two of them sit and ponder for a while. They narrow down their target to the captain by the river. This person is related to sailors, and the initials match. Perhaps he is Orla's lover from 8 years ago. Before the two of them can come up with a way to confirm, a new activity begins at the camp to make everyone remember the history of the war. The camp participants are divided into teams. Their goal is to capture each other's flags. Each participant has to wear a shoulder badge. If someone tears off your shoulder badge, it means you've been killed by the enemy. Valerka quickly gets involved in the game. A young boy named Yura stops Valerka. Yura heard that Valerka often mentions vampires. He comes over seeking help. He has also seen someone sucking blood in the camp. Valerka agrees to have a detailed conversation with him in the evening. He teaches Yura how to resist vampires. After saying that, he immerses himself back into the game. The game finally ends in the evening. The counselor discovers that Yura is missing. Everyone searches with flashlights. Valerka and Igor think of the captain. They arrive outside the cabin where he lives. Valerka keeps watch outside. Igor goes inside to search for clues. Before long, the captain walks over. Valerka quickly shakes the flashlight to alert his companion. Igor hides in the closet after seeing that. Soon, the captain and a woman enter the room. Both of them appear to be very anxious. They are afraid that the police might come to search. Through their conversation, Igor overhears that the captain seems to have hidden something in the cafeteria. He sneaks out of the room. He calls Valerka and they head to the cafeteria. Shortly after they arrive, the captain enters. He pulls out a large box from the freezer and he moves it onto the boat. Igor follows and ambushes him. They engage in a fight on the boat. At a crucial moment, Valerka knocks out the captain with a bottle. They open the box. He discovers that it contains only ordinary beef. It turns out the captain was just stealing things. As for his relationship with Orla, they did have a love affair, but since she was plagued by nightmares and kept talking nonsense about vampires, the captain betrayed her and found someone new. At this time, Yura is also found by the counselor. Nevertheless, he has already turned into a vampire. Their investigation reaches a dead end again. They decide to seek out the most experienced veteran. They ask him if he knows anything about vampires. The veteran suggests they investigate the disfigured ant. The next day, Valerka sneaks into the opponent's residence. He rummages through the cabinets and drawers, searching for clues. Eventually, in an iron box, he sees his brother's keychain. It was handmade by Valerka himself. There's only one like it in the world. This further strengthens his belief. The disfigured ant is the vampire matriarch. A vicious dog enters the room. Valerka quickly jumps out of the window to escape. He informs Igor about this matter. They use the daytime to prepare tools. They also borrow a pistol from the veteran. When night falls, they sneak into the disfigured ant's residence. Valerka throws drugged beef to the guard dog to prevent any mischief from the little fellows. Right after that, Igor takes out a homemade device. He prepares to melt the iron lock. Valerka loads the bullets. They successfully break in through the door. To their surprise, there's no one inside. They walk into the bedroom to investigate. They are knocked down by the disfigured ant. Igor grabs a chair and smashes it towards her. Then he picks up the pistol, preparing to shoot. Valerka notices a layer of powder on his hands. It's residue from the bullets. The veteran tampered with the gun. He quickly stops Igor. The pieces of the puzzle quickly connect. The disfigured ant is not the matriarch. The veteran with a sickle and hammer tattooed on his arm is. He is the one who turned others into vampires. They all wear red scarves and linen badges. The disfigured ant tells them a past story. Many years ago, the veteran brothers committed all sorts of evil deeds. They looted the people's wealth. They were captured by an official and turned into vampires. They inherited the other party's mantle. They also had the symbols representing the Soviet Union carved on their bodies. They constantly turned followers into vampires to serve their own purposes. Yet, human greed knows no bounds. One of the veterans betrayed his own brother. He wanted to enjoy the wealth and power alone. But as a vampire, his brother couldn't feed on the full moon night or interact with his servants and eventually died in prison. Now that Valerka knows how to eliminate vampires, they start preparing for the plan. They split up, with Igor responsible for isolating the vampire servants, while Valerka must lock up the veteran. With just the two of them, it's difficult to succeed, so Igor seeks the help of the doctor. They plan to lure the vampires onto a boat, then start the engine and leave the shore. Vampires dare not enter the river and would be trapped within. They seem to sense the approaching full moon and start rampaging. Vampires pounce on the doctor, clinging to him and biting. Igor hides in the cabin, afraid to make a sound. The vampires drain the doctor and turn their attention to Igor. In a critical moment, Genie pushes Igor into the river, saving his life. Meanwhile, Valerka lures the veteran into the dining hall. Suddenly, Lena appears, wanting to apologize to Valerka for what happened before. Valerka grabs her and hides in the shadows. Valerka topples a shelf, crushing the veteran underneath. The veteran's hand suddenly morphs and expands, pushing the iron structure aside in an instant. The veteran rips open his shirt, revealing his true form. Valerka takes Lena's hand and flees. The dining hall suddenly falls into silence, and the veteran doesn't pursue them. Valerka was about to breathe a sigh of relief, but he caught a glimpse of a figure on the roof. Before he could react, the veteran lifted Lena into the air. Valerka grabbed the veteran's leg, but was thrown to the ground. He picked up the nearby cane and stabbed it into the other's arm. The veteran finally let go of Lena, and the two children immediately ran away. But how could they outrun the vampire? Valerka couldn't stop him at all. The vampire crawled towards Lena, extending its tongue to feed. Suddenly, Valerka spoke up to stop him, saying, "I want your blood. I can't inherit the legacy of the vampire." Valerka drank the veteran's blood and became the new successor, but he firmly believed that he wouldn't become like the veteran. The veteran found it amusing, believing that Valerka couldn't overcome his nature. Valerka didn't say much. He let Lena go and left with her, and the veteran found fulfillment in finding his successor's desire. He poured oil all over his body and burned himself to death. With the veteran's death, all the servants regained consciousness, and the summer camp finally came to an end. Everyone looked up at the bonfire, as if they had never experienced anything terrifying. The next day, Valerka boarded the ship with everyone and left the camp, uncertain about what the future held. The film ends here. This is a Soviet pioneer version of a summer camp vampire story, with many political metaphors. The students wearing Lenin badges and red scarves are all vampires, while the veteran bears the Soviet sickle and hammer. The servants hypnotized by vampires will obediently follow the commands and provide their blood to the vampire masters. It's already quite clear from what's been said. If you like my channel, please subscribe to it.